All right, let's dive in today. We're going to be talking about uh, India and their goal of becoming like a global healthcare innovation hub by 2030.
Okay.
We found this really interesting article in the Indian Express, and it kind of lays out their whole vision and how they plan to get there.
Yeah.
I thought it was especially interesting because, they're known as like the pharmacy of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought the article was great at pointing out that tension, right,
Hmm.
between being the pharmacy of the world,
Right.
uh, making affordable generics, and this push for cutting-edge therapies.
Yeah.
Can they really do both? Can they make that leap?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, and the article doesn't really shy away from how urgent this is. I mean, the WHO says by 2030, India is going to be facing a $4.58 trillion healthcare burden.
Wow.
It's a huge amount of money, right? And that's because of like the double whammy of, communicable and non-communicable diseases.
Yeah, it kind of paints a tough picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you think that all this talk about innovation, it's not just an economic opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a necessity.
It's a need. Yeah.
The article used some good examples, I thought, about cell and gene therapy,
Right.
which is supposed to be, what, a $93 billion global market by 2030?
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like in India, they're just getting started in those areas. And what I thought was really interesting was how the article talked about infrastructure
Right.
being like the foundation for innovation.
Yeah.
They called it the Innovation-Infrastructure Nexus.
Yeah, because you can have the ideas,
Right.
but if you don't have the environment
Right.
to support them,
Right.
then nothing happens.
Nothing's going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have both. And they broke it down. They broke that nexus down into three like interconnected pillars.
Yeah,
And obviously, like the first one is funding, right?
of course.
So you got to have money.
Absolutely. And the article points out that, right now, India is spending less than 0.2% of its GDP on healthcare R&D. Compare that to, let's say, the U.S., which spends like 1.2%.
Yeah.
So there's a big gap there.
Yeah. Huge.
The article suggests that they should try to get to 0.4% by 2028.
Okay.
And to do that, they talk about some pretty interesting ways to encourage private investment,
Oh, interesting.
like in, gene editing and personalized medicine,
Oh.
things like that. They mentioned government-led innovation funds, tax credits, these kinds of things to really incentivize the private sector.
Right. Because you need to back it up. Like you're saying, you need to back up these ideas with actual money.
Yeah.
Commitment. What about the second pillar?
Yeah, so that's where the physical and digital infrastructure comes into play.
Okay.
So the article, it emphasizes the need for, advanced manufacturing units,
Mm-hmm.
ones that meet international standards for things like biologics and gene therapies.
Yeah.
And this could potentially reduce India's reliance on imports, which is huge.
Right.
And then there's also the digital side of things. They talk about strengthening something called the Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission,
Okay.
which is basically all about seamless data exchange between hospitals, research centers, and regulatory bodies, to really accelerate innovation.
Right. So they're trying to build like an ecosystem where data is readily available and then they can also manufacture those treatments within India.
Right, domestically.
Absolutely.
So-
So it's a really comprehensive approach, I think.
Yeah, it is. And then that third pillar, they get into the human side of it,
Right.
the talent and the collaboration ecosystem.
The people.
Yeah, the people, absolutely.
Mhm.
And the article highlights the need for really robust training programs, right? And things like genomics, AI, bioinformatics,
Right.
building a workforce that's prepared to use these new technologies.
Right.
And then, of course, partnerships globally with institutions like the NIH and the WHO
Yeah.
to get access to the latest advancements.
Right. Share knowledge. Yeah. So it seems like there's really trying to like create a deliberate strategy, right?
Yeah.
A multifaceted strategy. It's more than just money,
More than just throwing money at the problem.
throwing money at the problem. Yeah. But how does all of that translate into like actual budget expectations? The 2024 budget,
Right.
there was a modest 3.43% increase,
Yeah.
which doesn't seem like much considering everything we've just talked about.
Yeah, that 2024 budget allocation was about 89,155 crore rupees,
Okay.
which, yeah, it was a modest increase, especially when you think about other countries where healthcare spending is more than 10% of GDP.
Yeah.
So the article has high hopes for the 2025 budget.
Okay.
They're really emphasizing increased R&D funding,
Okay.
particularly through schemes like PIIP, which is meant to draw in more private sector investment for clinical research.
Oh, interesting. So they're trying to boost that spending and not just rely on like public funds. Did they mention any specific like infrastructure projects that they're hoping will get funded?
Oh, yeah. They specifically talk about investments in establishing healthcare hubs in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities,
Oh, interesting.
equipping them with, state-of-the-art research facilities and telemedicine capabilities.
Wow.
So taking it beyond just the major metropolitan area.
Yeah, spreading it out.
A more distributed model?
Yeah, almost like they're trying to create like mini innovation ecosystems across the country.
Exactly.
I imagine part of that would also be like streamlined regulations, right?
Oh, absolutely. The article talks about the need to streamline approvals for clinical trials, manufacturing facilities to speed things up,
Right.
to create a regulatory environment that really welcomes innovation without sacrificing safety and efficacy, of course.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah.
So it seems like they've got this really like solid framework for promoting innovation, the funding, the infrastructure, the regulatory piece. But in terms of that infrastructure, like what are the real priorities there? Like what do they want to see happen first?
Okay, so the article highlights 3 key areas.
Yeah.
First, they want to see those regional centers of excellence that we just talked about.
Okay.
Really make sure that advanced healthcare goes beyond the big cities.
Right.
Spread the innovation,
Yeah.
the expertise. It's a bold idea, a more equitable approach.
It's really interesting, trying to decentralize it. Okay, so what about the second priority area?
Second, they want to build these strong clinical trial networks.
Okay.
This means streamlining those approval processes we talked about, maybe even creating dedicated zones with faster research implementation.
Okay.
They want to attract global clinical trials to India,
Interesting.
bring in that investment and expertise.
Right, right. So it's about like attracting making India a global player in clinical research.
Exactly.
Okay, and what's that third priority?
All right, the third one, it's something that's become really crucial, especially after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Public health preparedness.
Of course. Yeah.
The article really emphasizes strengthening all the infrastructure related to pandemic response. Things like vaccine cold chains, genomic surveillance systems,
Yeah.
learning from what happened, being better prepared for the future.
Right, right. It really showed how important it is to have that strong infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And to be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly.
So we've talked about, the innovation and the infrastructure, but how do they plan to make this happen?
Right. So they have some really interesting policy ideas. One of the big ones is creating this national innovation mission for healthcare,
Okay.
similar in scope to like the Make in India campaign.
Interesting.
A really focused effort to push R&D and infrastructure development, putting India on the map as a healthcare innovator.
They're serious about this.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They also propose creating something called regulatory sandboxes.
What is that?
So these are like controlled environments
Okay.
where startups can test out their healthcare solutions
Oh, wow.
without all the usual regulatory hurdles.
Interesting.
It's about encouraging experimentation, rapid development, letting new ideas flourish.
Right, giving them the space to try things out and see what works.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. What else?
The final piece, and I think maybe the most important one, is cross-sector collaboration.
Okay.
So bringing together everyone, policymakers, academics, industry leaders, patient groups, everyone working together toward a shared goal.
Break down those silos,
Yeah,
work
sure.
together.
Exactly.
It seems like that's really important to them. But in the end, what does success look like?
Right.
What's their vision for India in 2030?
Well, they have this vision of India becoming a global hub for healthcare innovation,
Wow.
not just for themselves, but contributing to advancements that benefit the whole world.
It's ambitious.
It is. It's a shift from being the pharmacy of the world to becoming the innovation engine.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
What do they think is like the key to achieving this?
I think the article's conclusion says it all.
Okay.
It's about a genuine partnership between the government, industry, and academia,
Right.
creating an ecosystem where innovation is nurtured and supported.
Yeah. So not just ideas, but the support to make them a reality.
Exactly.
It will be interesting to see how this evolves, what innovations they pioneer. Now, let's talk about some of those potential innovations. Like, where do you think India could really make its mark in the next few years?
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting. And, the article Well, it provides this framework. It doesn't get too specific about individual innovations.
Okay.
But I think there are some areas where India could really maybe even surprise the world. We can explore those when we come back. So, welcome back. Before we get into those specific innovations, one thing I noticed is that the article doesn't just focus on like those high-tech solutions.
Right.
It also highlights, building on India's existing strengths,
Mm.
especially in pharma.
Right. Right. We were just talking about how they are a powerhouse when it comes to generic drugs.
Exactly.
But the article goes a step further. It suggests they could even become a leader in like biosimilars, those complex biologics.
Right.
Do you think that's a realistic goal, or are they kind of playing catch up there?
I think they have a real shot at leading in that area. Biosimilars are basically the generic versions of biologic drugs.
Right.
Those super effective, but often really expensive medications that come from living organisms.
Hmm.
And with India's infrastructure and experience in manufacturing,
Yeah.
I think they could have a real advantage.
So they could leverage those existing strengths to make those like life-saving treatments more affordable globally.
Exactly. Make them more accessible.
That's a powerful idea.
And it fits right in with their goal of not just serving their own people, but contributing to a more equitable healthcare landscape for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. What about some of the other areas where India might break new ground? I know the article touched on AI and machine learning, but it also mentioned some of the hurdles, like the fact that health data in India is kind of fragmented.
Right.
How can they get past that to really unlock AI's potential?
Well, I think it's a valid concern. I mean, India has this massive and diverse population,
Yeah.
and they're rapidly expanding their digital infrastructure. So when it comes to data, they have a unique advantage.
Right.
But to actually use that data effectively, they need solid systems for collecting it, storing it, and analyzing it.
Right. So it's not just about how much data you have, but the quality of it and being able to access it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The article talks about strengthening initiatives like that Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission,
Mm-hmm.
creating this more unified healthcare data ecosystem
Right.
that would enable things like AI-powered diagnostic tools, personalized treatments, even predictive models to identify people at risk for certain conditions.
It sounds like AI could really change healthcare in India.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Especially when you consider the challenge of providing quality care to so many people.
Yeah. Think about it. AI-powered diagnostic tools
Yeah.
that could reach even remote villages.
Yeah.
Algorithms that help healthcare providers make better decisions. It could be huge.
It's exciting to think about. Are there any other areas that you find particularly interesting in terms of India's potential?
One area I'm really curious about is India becoming a leader in traditional medicine-based therapies. We touched on this earlier.
Right.
But I think it deserves a closer look. They have such a rich history of traditional medicine,
Mm-hmm.
things like Ayurveda and Siddha.
Mm-hmm.
And they're increasingly studying these systems using modern scientific methods.
I've always been fascinated by Ayurveda. It seems to be gaining popularity worldwide.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't really understand how it works or how it could be considered innovative in like modern healthcare.
It's a great question. It might seem counterintuitive because these systems are ancient,
Yeah.
but they're being researched using really rigorous scientific methods now.
Wow.
Scientists are looking at the potential of traditional herbs and formulations to treat all kinds of conditions,
Mhm.
from chronic diseases like diabetes to even some forms of cancer.
So it's about combining ancient wisdom with modern science.
Yeah. Looking at these practices through a modern scientific lens. And India is perfectly positioned to lead this research, with its vast biodiversity
Yeah.
and deep knowledge of traditional medicine.
Yeah.
Imagine discovering a new drug from a plant that's been used in Ayurveda for centuries.
That would be amazing. A real testament to their ability to blend tradition and innovation. But, we've been painting a pretty rosy picture.
Yeah.
The article is also upfront about the challenges that they're going to have to overcome. What are some of the biggest obstacles they might face?
Well, you're right. It's important to acknowledge the challenges. Like we said before, funding is a major concern.
Right.
Even with the proposed increases, India's R&D spending is still low compared to other countries.
Yeah. And the article also pointed out it's not just about the amount, but how that money is spent.
Exactly. They need to focus on high-risk, high-reward research, particularly in areas like cell and gene therapy, AI, and this exploration of traditional medicine.
Right. So making smart investments, not just throwing money at the problem.
Exactly. And another challenge is the shortage of skilled talent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To develop and use these cutting-edge therapies and technologies, you need highly trained people.
Right.
Investing in education, training programs, and things like bioinformatics, genomics, data science, it's crucial.
It's about building that next generation of innovators.
Yeah, and not just training them,
Right.
but creating an environment where they want to stay and work.
Right, of course.
Competitive salaries, world-class facilities, opportunities for growth.
Make it a place where people want to be.
Exactly.
Hmm.
One more challenge, and it's often overlooked, is the need for a more streamlined regulatory environment.
Okay.
Getting approval for clinical trials and new drug development can be a really long and complicated process in India.
Right.
And that can stifle innovation and discourage investment.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem. If it takes forever to get a new drug or therapy approved, it's hard to bring those innovations to market.
Exactly.
So what are some potential solutions for that?
The article talks about, using more flexible approaches, like those regulatory sandboxes we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It would allow for more experimentation, faster development, especially for startups.
Right.
Finding that balance between safety and encouraging a more dynamic system.
Making it more agile. Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of work ahead,
Yeah,
but also a lot of potential for positive change.
absolutely.
Before we move on to the global implications of all this, what are some specific things that you'll be watching for in that upcoming 2025 budget to see how committed they really are to this vision?
That's a great question. And, it's something I've been thinking about a lot. We'll be looking for a few key things.
So we're back, and we've been talking all about India's healthcare future. Their big ambitions to become a global innovation hub, the possibility of groundbreaking advancements in areas like biosimilars, AI, even traditional medicine.
Right. And we can't forget about the challenges, right?
Mhm.
The funding issues, the need for more skilled workers, making the regulatory environment work better.
Yeah, for sure. But we ended on a pretty optimistic note, saying that India really has a chance to overcome those obstacles and achieve something amazing.
Absolutely. And that leads us back to the question we had before. What happens if they actually do it?
Yeah, what are the global implications if India becomes this healthcare innovation hub?
It's really exciting to think about. It could have a huge ripple effect going way beyond India's borders. Imagine a world where those cutting-edge therapies and technologies that are so expensive now become affordable and available to millions more people.
It's like making healthcare accessible for everyone.
Exactly, democratizing healthcare. India is really good at producing affordable medicines, and as they innovate more, it could change the whole global healthcare landscape. We could see a wave of affordable biosimilars, AI tools that can be used in places with limited resources, even new treatments based on traditional medicine.
It's not just about cost, though, right? It's about making sure everyone has access, especially in developing countries where it's hard to get those new treatments.
Exactly. India could become a major source of innovation for those regions, offering solutions that fit their specific needs.
It's a vision of healthcare that's both innovative and equitable.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And beyond access and affordability, India's rise could shake things up in the global pharmaceutical industry.
Interesting.
More competition could actually drive down prices worldwide.
So it could be good for everyone, except maybe those companies that are used to charging a ton of money for those life-saving drugs.
Maybe. But in the end, competition and innovation help patients all over the world. It pushes things forward.
It's about putting people before profit.
Exactly. And, besides the direct impacts, if India succeeds, it might inspire other countries to invest more in healthcare innovation,
Right.
creating a kind of global cycle of progress and collaboration, a more diverse healthcare ecosystem, new ideas and solutions coming from everywhere.
It's like a global team working on healthcare innovation.
Yeah, and with India leading the charge.
Yeah.
And that could lead to breakthroughs that help everyone.
No matter where you live or your economic situation, it's pretty inspiring. As we wrap up, though, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've discussed India's potential, the challenges they face,
Right.
what it could mean for the world if they succeed. But what about us? What can we do as individuals to help create this future where healthcare is more equitable and innovative?
That's a great question. For starters, we can learn more about the challenges, support organizations working to improve access to care. We can also push for policies that promote both innovation and fairness.
It's about understanding that healthcare is a global issue. We need to work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we work together, we can build a future where everyone has the health care they need to live a long, healthy life.
Where innovation is a right, not a privilege. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been really insightful and encouraging.
It has. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep working towards a better world for all of us.